Thank you, everybody, for coming to our Police Station Building Committee. I think we have Alex in online. Alex will unmute you when it's time. And I think we may only be missing Kathy, Brenda, and Mike Hardy. So in fairness to everybody's time, I guess we'll get started. I want to keep these meetings to an hour from now. And the first agenda item is meeting minutes, which I know Kate got out. Does anybody have any comments on the meeting minutes? Anybody? All right, can I get a motion?
I'd like to move the minutes.
Second. Is there a second? Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Ayes have it. Okay, I'm not sure if we're going to be turning over to, I think we'll turn over to Kevin on our temporary plan, which is to relocate the police station temporarily to the Vinebrook treatment plant site. As everybody is aware, we need to find a place to put the police department during the construction phase, and we felt that this was the most economical way for us to do this. And I know everybody's dying to jump in on designing the new station, which I know I'm looking forward to personally, but we got to get this stuff out of the way first. And I know our team's been putting a lot of time into this aspect of it, so I guess I'll turn it over to Kevin.
Okay. Thanks, Paul. So as Paul said, we've been starting to do a pretty extensive review of the existing building over there. As most of you know, it's a water treatment plant, so there's a lot of big tanks, vessels, process piping, a lot of electrical, a lot of...
I can't hear you.
Oh, sorry. Try and get that a little closer.
Better?
Is that better?
Just project your phone.
I'll try and yell a little bit louder, because I can hear a little bit here, and I'm thinking I'm loud enough. But yeah, so what we've been doing for the last couple of weeks or month or so is really exploring the existing building over there on Middlesex Turnpike. As you all know, it's a water treatment plant that's been decommissioned or is in the process of final decommissioning. We've been over there several times with my team of myself, my engineers, and my other architectural team, doing a survey of all of the things that need to come out, what we can do to make it work in there. There's an extensive amount of big storage tanks, process piping, a lot of electric control panels that we've all now identified all of that scope of work that needs to come out, so that we have that now starting on our demo drawings. We're coordinating that with the engineers on where we need to cut and paste cut and patch into existing systems for our new systems. We've started our layouts for the building. I probably should start with the building layout. We set it up so that the public comes in at the regular convenient outlet, not outlet, convenient egress doors from the front of the building. We're still going to maintain that as the main entrance. We'll zoom in here to...
Kevin, are you going to share it on the WebEx?
Oh, got to share. That would help.
Thank you.
There we go. Did that right?
Yeah.
Is that shared now?
Yeah,
Okay.
so if you click on that, whichever one you're talking about.
Yep. So as I said, we're going to maintain the main entrance to the building for the public on the front of the building. They'll come into a small, secure lobby where we'll have our mental health clinicians accessible to the main entrance. And primarily now, the records person will be the primary greeter for the public for any of their needs. We created a secondary semi-secured lobby for the public if somebody came in and needed to use the toilet facilities. We've created an area where we can let them come in. The existing toilet rooms are going to be maintained. The only change that we're making inside that room is that we are changing the shower rooms, the shower stalls, to be actual toilet rooms, so that we can meet the toilet or the plumbing count for number of toilet fixtures per the occupants of the building. It's a pretty economical way to get the extra toilet fixture that we needed, since most of the utilities are currently there, from the sanitary line for the drain and the water for the toilets. Once you come in past there, we're trying to maintain the existing offices that are currently there for where the IT and the main electric service are, and telephone demarc are all going to maintain. We're going to reutilize one of the offices as the E911 closet, if you will, where the next to that would be the radio room, where we're going to have all of the radio equipment that'll be transferred from the current headquarters to this current station. You come around the corner towards the front of the first part of the building is kind of, there's 3 separate buildings, or 4 separate buildings actually. This front part, we're going to maintain the chief and his admin. Strangely enough, the building mechanical room with the water heaters and air handlings and all that sort of equipment is in this primarily front entrance. And we're going to convert the front room to be a conference room, break room type of a place for the staff to be able to get away from their desk to eat lunch or whatever meal they happen to be in the station for. As we move plan left, we've got it set up that the administrative suite, specifically the command staff, is accessible from as you're coming down the corridor. Like I said, you will have the chief's office, his admin, second admin, deputy chief, and the 2 captains. So the administrative staff of the department has kind of got their own little branch. We talked about being able to lock that off, but the chief wanted to have more of an open door policy, so we didn't bother putting a door in there. When you get out into the main part of the building, this part here, it's almost a 20-foot ceiling. It's what's a pre-engineered metal building, commonly known in the industry as a Butler building, where you've got insulated panels, steel girts, suspension. Inside here is all of the water treatment equipment. There's, I believe, 8 vessels that are storage containment vessels that are on elevated curbs with all of its associated piping. So every wall that you see in here essentially is brand new. We're only able to keep one wall on this back wall here as something that we can use. The rest of it is completely all new construction. We've kind of had the mantra going from the beginning of this that as this is a 2-year duration, as we understand the duration will be, we're trying to do things as economically as possible. Anything that's got what I've told all my engineers and my interior designer, I don't want carpet that's got a 20-year life. I don't want vinyl tiles that have got a 20-year life. We're not paying for a 20-year life. It's a 2-year duration. So we're going to be picking a carpet tile that'll have probably like a 5-year. It'll be like more of a heavy residential tile as opposed to a light commercial, so that if something happens to the tile, we can just peel it up. It's self-adhesive. It sticks back down, pack it, and go. The walls, we're figuring, because the ceiling height in here is about between 18 to 20 feet tall, depending on where you are within the space, that just the metal studs will go all the way up. But to do that, we need to make them 6-inch metal studs. We're going to stop the drywall probably a foot above the ceiling, and we will put on certain areas where we want some better sound deadening or sound control qualities in it. We'll put sound insulation on top of the suspended ceiling at that point, so that those rooms will have the confidentiality and the quietness that they're looking for. So we've started out by putting the dispatchers right next to where the E911 and all the radio equipment is going to be for easy access and shortness of running connectivity to it. We've got the patrol lieutenants directly after them. We've called some other administrative offices that are going to now be shared, along with the patrol sergeants. And to end the back of the building, we've got report writing and roll call. We also were planning on using, I'll get to it in a minute when we talk about the site, the main staff entrance will be through this back door, this back door here. So figuring that all the staff will be coming in and out of this, going to roll call, report writing, and then right back out again. So we're trying to make it as efficient for the patrol officers as possible. In the middle section, we've got primarily the detective suite with the command staff of the detective suite sharing a room, and then the other 9 or 8 positions will be in a shared office space. We do have 2 interview rooms for conducting interviews. Just because we're in a temporary space doesn't mean crime is going to stop in Burlington for the next 2 years. So we do need spaces to be able to take reports and interview victims and defendants. And to finish off the first floor, we've got the traffic suite. The traffic division is on the front of the building. The primary entrance is to the, actually, before I move on to that, we do have a place for the cyber crimes. Will be in this little, I call it the belt building, along with a place to do booking. You'll notice in this building, there are some compromises that are being made programmatically for space concerns and costs. We're not currently going to have any locker rooms or fitness rooms in the current building for the 2 years that they're out of headquarters, and there will also be no detention. Talking with the chief, the expression that we've been using is he's going to do as much catch and release as possible, where if somebody doesn't need to be detained, but they do need to be booked and arrested, we can do the booking and arresting here at the station in this booking room, but any prisoners that need to be detained will be detained through mutual aid with a neighboring town, which I believe there's already agreements in place to take that, to take the prisoners. There will also be no Sally Port. We were looking at some of the things that are big volume spaces that also have some other cost implications to it, with an eye to keeping things on the most economical as possible. We're making the building functionable for the department for 2 years, with the understanding that there are still provisions for them to do their job on a daily basis and keep moving forward. So part of our approach was to get everybody that was going to be in the building on one floor. There is a basement. In the basement, the only thing that's going to be down there is some archives, the evidence storage, and the armory and weapons cleaning and weapons storage. Those are not really occupied spaces. They're places they're workspaces where people come and go. So it helped us in two folds. One, it kept everybody up on one floor and somebody didn't feel like they were sitting in a basement for 2 years. The second was from a code standpoint. If we have occupied spaces in the basement, we would then need to be handicapped accessible, which would mean we need to put an elevator in. And the cost to put an elevator in for, again, 2 years, it was an expense that we were trying to avoid at all costs. So that's pretty much the where we are for the plan and how that fits on the site.
Hold on a second, Kevin. Anybody have any questions on the inside of the building, or Jim?
Probably for the chief, combining the report room with the roll call break room, the report room's usually detached by itself. I know there could be a distraction. Is there a separate way we can the report room could be detached from a busy area?
So what we did was we made the provision up in the front by my office there. That's a conference room as well. So if we needed to move roll call for whatever reason, we could certainly move that out to the front if something was going on in the report room. But at this point, again, in economies of scale, we figured we'd put them in there. We can deal with any short-term problem. I don't see it being an issue.
It's just based on what happened there.
Yep.
Mike?
Kevin, what's the timeline for the transition? When are you looking to do this? Move into this building?
We're looking to, currently the schedule, which Dave from CHA will go over in a minute, We're looking to have these drawings ready to go out to bid on or about the first week of December. Bid period gets us through the first 2 weeks of January and giving the contractor 6 months to build this out, so that as this temporary space is being ready to be occupied, we're out to bid for the new project, so that couple of months during the summer when we're going to be bidding the new project out, they can start to move stuff over and migrate over, so that it can be as smooth a transition as possible.
You said a 6-month build-out for the temporary building?
Give or take, yes.
We'd look to,
Schedule of detail.
yeah,
Okay, okay,
we're going to do, right.
okay, thank you.
But to answer your question, we'll be looking to move, start the preliminary move towards about June.
Okay.
And then we're wrapping up the construction, doing any minor punch list stuff, and then do the final move in towards the end of June. And as we'll go through it in the schedule update, but we're looking to open our bids for general contractors early August. So we kind of got that month of July to really move things and get settled in.
So this facility is anticipated only being used for 2 years.
Approximately.
Be out of there.
Yep.
Yeah. So that shouldn't really impact any of the day-to-day operations in that time. As the chief said, that some of these things are temporary if you have to swap out space and whatnot.
Yeah, the intention is that this space, as soon as the new building is ready, they're moving out of here. So if we've got, I think, a 20-month schedule for the new building construction, depending on when they move out of the current building ahead of time, and how long the construction ends up taking. I mean, we're anticipating a comfortable 20 months, but never know what the acts of gods are going to happen. That this place will be here and available to them to continue to operate out of for the duration.
And everything that's in this facility is going to be functional here in this facility.
Essentially, aside from, like I said, aside from detention, locker rooms, and fitness room, and the sally port, and the firing range. But yes, everything here will maintain. Chief and I have gone over in fairly good detail, very detailed actually,
Good.
how things are going to work, how people are going to flow, even to the point of how they're flowing through the building, to make sure that, like I said, we put the roll call and the report writing in the back corner, so it's as close to the staff entrance as possible. So as officers coming in and off of shift, and we'll get into in a few minutes the way that we've organized the site and where parking and which vehicles are going to be where, trying to be as efficient as we can, taking kind of cues for what we're going to do in the real building, putting as much of those into this without anything that has any real cost associated with it.
Good, good. Very good.
Any more questions, Barbara?
Yeah. I'm assuming this is the parking. Is there adequate parking for all the officers' cars as well as the patrol cars?
Yes.
And will there be some marked spots for people who are visiting?
Yes. Yep.
Right near that door?
So we'll do an overview of the outside of the building next, Kevin?
Yep.
All right, is there any more?
Oh, sorry, do we need that parking?
Yes.
Okay, and that's,
It's accounted for.
I jumped ahead. Okay, sorry.
I'm just curious to know if there's a cost to the town of Burlington for us transporting prisoners to another town. Is there a cost involved in that to the other town?
There is not. The only cost that could come about is if we needed to guard the prisoner, for instance, in Lexington. I wouldn't put that on to Lexington PD. I would send an officer over. So if that caused our manning to go down, we would have to make, I'd have to hire another officer. But the way we're going to try to do this is to hold as few people as possible. And I have agreements with both the Middlesex Sheriff and Lexington. Whenever we're able to ship a prisoner off to Middlesex County, they will handle everything, so there'd be no cost implication at all.
Singh?
Yeah, I have and forgive me if I missed it, so I understand the vestibule space for somebody coming in, like maybe there's a camera, get buzzed in or whatever, but what is the process once they get through there in terms of security or working somebody through to the chief's office or whatever? Like, I'm confused about like how that process is going to get guided.
What we would anticipate is that the records person would be the primary greeter. They would get the person's name, who they want to see, and either that officer or the chief or whoever would come and get that person, bring them to one of the two meeting rooms or to their office. and then they would conduct them, whatever business they needed with that individual at that point.
So the records person would have the view of the door, would get the bell, and then their job is to either guide or get somebody else to then guide anybody through the secure space.
Yeah, that's the plan.
That's how it operates now too, Chief, right?
Yes.
Yeah, you come into that vestibule, someone from dispatch.
Yes, so if someone's,
Someone and they come down.
Well, so just like, because dispatch is right there, and they can see, like, that's what I'm...
right, this will happen the same way. There will be somebody there, and if they're coming in for me, either my secretary would go out and get them, or I would, but nobody goes through the building unescorted. Whoever they're there to see will come down and get them, bring them through the building, and then make sure they get back out of the building.
Liz?
Yeah, so I know that this is a flex space for the police department, and there's money being put into this space. Does the administration or the town have a plan for this building post-police department use?
No, I mean, I think that that's a whole separate topic. I think it could have some more life into it. I don't necessarily think, because of the flood zone issue, that it should be like the next place we put offices or something, but it's a big garage, and I think it has potential for something. I mean, indoor pickleball courts, or, I mean, recreation has expressed an interest in the space, and I'm sure that there may be some things that we could do there in the future. You'd have to weigh the investment, and in terms of, like I say, being in the flood zone makes it questionable as to how much money. We know that it's never flooded before in history, but again, times have changed, as we've all seen, so we'd have to really weigh the decision as a town as to sort of how permanent we want to do something there. It would be my take on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think my only thought in asking the question was, I know that, we're putting money into this space, and, you talked about having materials that are kind of, instead of like 50-year materials, doing 5-year, is there a cost benefit to kind of putting in better materials so that we can use the space for a longer time without having to maintain, completely redo it? That is all.
No. Well, maybe the administration folks, but...
I think that's a great point. I think what it comes down to is how much of an allowance we're carrying for this, and, every dollar that we spend on the temporary space is a dollar that could be allocated to the new permanent building, which is, for all instances, a 50, 60-year solution. So I think there's a balance where we got to look at that and weigh it out, but that is something that we were discussing the other day, specifically as simple as furniture. What are we going to do with the furniture that's left behind? Are we going to leave it in place? Do we need to move that out? Are we going to take anything back to the new station? We have a pretty healthy budget for new furniture, so all those things need to be considered. It's a good thought, and I think, Paul, to your point, it's just stuff that's being discussed outside of this project at this stage.
And yeah, like I say, I do think it has a use for something, but I think that even if we were going to reuse it for something, these walls would probably be coming down, and we'd probably have to like reshift things, because it's kind of uniquely set up for their operation, I think.
But it'll be much more accepting because it won't have giant water tanks.
Yes.
Pads and piping.
Giant
Yeah.
pads sitting in the way.
Make those holding tanks. Hold prisoners.
The schools are
Vault's
always,
still in the basement.
the schools are always looking for furniture, I can tell you that from my own experiences, so I'm sure they'll pick up anything that's left behind. But the fact that, police stations get heavily used, so after 2 years, it's not going to be like an office building that's been used for 2 years. There's going to be a lot of use in this building, so you probably, whoever is going to be the next tenant, going to want to clean a lot of that stuff out.
Mm-hmm.
My question was, you're buying new furniture for this temporary building?
No.
No, okay.
Gonna move.
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah, I wanted to also note that on the drawing that you have in front of you is actually, we did a survey of the existing furniture that's going to be coming, and we needed to do that for 2 reasons. One, to find out, make sure they've got everything that they need, and make sure that we're giving the spaces that we had just kind of created will fit what they're bringing with them.
Okay, so there's no new furniture going in here?
No.
Just the furnishings, walls, and...
It's just the infrastructure. We've got new walls going in, the mechanical system. We found out, which was good news, that the mechanical system serving the front part of the building here can be reused. Just retrofit some of the ductwork for it. but we will have a new complete air handling system for the rest of the building. Part of my edict to my engineers was that I don't want to touch the exterior envelope at all. I don't want to put a single hole in the roof. I don't want to put a single hole in the wall. There's plenty of places for, we're tying into plumbing vents where there's a ton of louvers. So I said, find a louver, make it work. I don't want to put a new unit on the roof. We're putting a new, as it turns out, we're going to be putting a new air handling unit in this back garage. It's the one place that we're not putting any other functionality out there. So I said to my engineers, you can have that, and there's just louvers on every wall. I said, if you need bigger airspace than that, we've got a problem with what you're designing, because there's no way in the world there's 4 8-foot by 7-foot louvers on that you got to be able to pull enough air in for that. But we're trying to do it with the most economical mechanical system. We're required to sprinkler it. Good news is there's already a sprinkler system in the building, so it's being retrofitted. There's already demarked for phone and cable, so we're just jumping off of those points there. Security, we're working on getting a limited security system. We're looking at some, for access control, we're looking for some battery-operated card readers and access so that we can not have to retrofit too much of the existing doors. And we've been very selective on, I think there's 6 or 8 doors that we said that we have to have access control on. So instead of having to run wire and cable and all that, we're going to use a Wi-Fi type device that's secure, that will allow them to be able to do it without the cost of labor to run those types of systems. So every step of the way so far, we've been trying to find what's the most economical way to make this work.
Makes sense, yeah.
All right, Jim?
Are we eliminating the need for trailers now? Is it self-contained?
This should be self-contained.
So on town, not renting trailers, that's going to be a huge savings on the project.
It's very beneficial for the project, yes.
Yeah, that,
Yeah.
huge savings.
Yep. Big savings.
All right, Kevin, you want, Mike?
One last one, just an extension of Liz's point. If we knew what we were going to do with it afterwards, maybe the town could invest some money in part of the retrofit to set it up for what we're going to do, not necessarily use the funds that would be going towards a new station, but it might be worth taking a look at possibilities of what we could do with it now that we're already in there working on it. Just a thought.
Well, maybe we can make a field trip as a committee to see the building, generate some ideas.
Sure.
At some point in the
Yeah.
near future. Kevin, you want to talk about the outside of the building now?
Yep.
The site?
So from a site standpoint, we'll put, obviously there'll be signage at the front on Middlesex Turnpike saying that this is where the police station is. That will probably be coordinated. We haven't gotten into the details of it yet, but probably part of a public outreach to the community, saying that as of such and such a date, the PD is going to be moving from where its current location is over here to this location, so that all of the social media outlets and town websites will have that information, and there'll be proper signage out on Middlesex Turnpike for that. Right now, it's a two-way road coming in, where, Robert, to your point, in the front, we've got a handicap parking space. There's currently 3 flagged spaces for visitors, which is what they currently have in their existing station. And then we've got a couple of other spaces for some of the command staff, very similar to the situation that they have here in their current location. We talked a little bit about with the chief in the new facility, the command staff won't be out with the public. Is he okay with keeping it this way? And he was like, it's actually going to be more secure over there than it is we're in its current location, because all he's going to have to compete with over there is going to be the deer and the wildlife, not people coming from the library or other functions around downtown on the town square. So we put a couple of those spaces out front there utilizing the existing paved area that we currently have for their parking. We've set it up, the paved road, the paving around the building is marginal for 2 cars wide for two-way traffic. So we were anticipating, or we're proposing to set it up as a one-way loop that we would have signage. There's currently an existing gate here that we put signage that says no authorized vehicles beyond this point only, and that the fleet the department's fleet of vehicles would be in the primary parking spaces for proximity to in and out of the building. Like I said, we've got in this area here, we're proposing to put the main staff entrance. So as they come in, the staff parks their vehicles here, come into the building, roll call, assignment out to their vehicle, and then out and back out to the building, out to the street. We are not planning on putting a single square yard of asphalt on the pavement on the project. We're anticipating using some material like a sub-base for road material, something that can be compacted but is still permeable, something that we can also line for parking spaces. So we're not anticipating changing any real topography on the site, other than probably take out some of the loam and put the sub-base material in to give us a firm driving and parking surface for the vehicles, whether it be the personal vehicles or the fleet vehicles. We do have this on the opposite side of where the staff entrance is where we've got the little booking area, which is on the paved area, so an officer would pull into that area, take the prisoner out or the detainee out, do the booking, and then release them. Again, we would have signage on basically at this point here saying authorized vehicles only beyond this point. Currently on the site, there's a detention basin that looks like it was been kind of used and abused over the years, but we don't want to have anybody parking in there, so we're proposing putting a couple of Jersey barriers just to keep people from driving in there and potentially parking in there, knowing most people are creatures of habit and they want a shortest distance between 2 points. We want to make it not comfortable for them to park there. And that's about where the site plan is. We're trying to be as light-footed as possible on the site, realizing where it is and where floodplains are, where wetlands are, all that. We're trying to stay out of it. That's the primary reason why we don't have anything over in this area here for parking. Apparently that's where there's some floodplain retention area, compensation area for the floodplain that was done previously for when the project was developed. So we're staying out of that. We're trying to, like I said, we're trying to keep everything out onto the dryness as possible and still give the department the spaces that they need for the fleet, and not only the fleet but their officers. And the count that we have of 62 spots breaks down to basically 34 spaces for the fleet, 4 parking spaces for the public, including a handicap spot, and the remainder is for the staff. And we set it up, the count for the maximum shift change from day shift to evening, which is when the maximum number of people are going to be in the building and maximum number of cars, vehicles. So this should, working with the chief, this should accommodate all of those functions and all of those vehicles that need to be coming and going, regardless of the time of day or which day of the week it is.
Thanks, Kevin. Any questions from anybody on sort of on the outside of this? Particularly curious to hear from Liz and Barbara, if they could channel their inner planning board member and see if there's any red flags that we should start thinking about now. The next step for this would be to go to a departmental development coordination meeting for a meeting with the land use departments. At that meeting, we'll hear from Conservation, Board of Health, Planning, Building Department about any concerns they have, and they'll let us know which boards and committees are going to want to see us about what. And that's sort of the next step where this plan will go to. So, not sure if anyone has any more questions on the plan.
So one of the things, so since there's going to be striped spaces, and you're changing the parking and circulation pattern here, this might rise to the occasion of a minor engineering change with the planning board, but only if we actually have a site plan on file, if we have an accurate site plan on file. That, you know, It's not.
Did you say accurate site plan?
A site plan that's been, I mean, technically speaking, a site plan that's been endorsed by the planning board,
Okay.
which I have no idea what was how, but, for minor engineering changes, we usually only accept plans that have already been endorsed through the site plan review process. I cannot speak to this site. I
Okay,
don't-
we can look into that.
Yeah, it would be nice to have a site plan for this site, Paul, because then going forward with whatever we do going forward with this site as a town, it's done, right? So we already have that set. And, we can build upon it in the future if we need to, but that is definitely something we can talk about at the DCM. And that is just.
I have a question.
Sure.
So my correct in understanding, the entrance is two directions, and then once you get past this parking area for visitors, it becomes one way all the way around.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay, just want to make sure of that. Thank you.
Yeah, so for the public, will always have basically two-way travel. The public will not be part of the one-way circulation.
All right, thank you.
Anybody else?
You guys checked in with conservation at all about any of this? Has conservation been contacted?
At DCM.
Okay.
Isn't that why we do DCM?
Yes, but trying to get it going, trying to get it going.
Thanks, Liz.
And that's scheduled for next Tuesday.
Yep.
Yep.
You do budget or schedule first?
If we're done with the site plan, I think budget was the next item on the agenda. Share my screen. All right, so I just wanted to give a quick update on the total project budget.
Yeah, before you get going, just for everybody, before we start the budget, this is the same budget with all the lines that you have seen since we got the first opinion of probable costs from KBA back in the day. What we're doing now is the OPM has slotted it onto their template and put in stuff that we've already committed or paid to date to just give a visual, and then this is something that will be updated on every meeting going forward. But I just wanted to say before we go over it, there hasn't been any changes yet.
Yeah, thanks, JD. That's essentially the update I wanted to provide today, is just kind of give you a visual representation of the budget report that you'll see on a regular basis when we meet, and kind of let you know how this thing's going to flow and develop as we progress. So to JD's point, we took the OPC from KBA and plugged it into our format. We'll be tracking the current budgeted amounts as well as any committed contracts amounts. As we get invoices in, we're going to track the amount paid to date. And then what I like to do is provide a projected final cost. So for instance, if we have our first line for legal and advertising and we're at a point in the project where we don't think we have any more legal or advertising costs, maybe legal is not the best point, but let's keep it on advertising. Say we're only committed to spend $5,000. We don't think we're going to have any more advertising. The projected final cost will show us that positive variance that we can kind of get back into contingency or give back to the project at the end of the day. So again, that's what that balance to finish is going to track, as well as how much has been paid to date versus the committed amounts. So we'll provide an update for this every time we meet with the building committee, just so that we are tracking the budget and see where there's potential pinch points, or we're able to kind of give some money back and reallocate funds as necessary. So currently, the only commitments to date are with the OPM, which is my firm, CHA, with KBA, the architecture firm, and with Landtech, the surveying firm. You'll notice under the direct construction costs, we have the $2 million allowance for the temporary space, as mentioned. And speaking with my estimating team, they told us to carry a rough allowance of 150 to 200 per square foot for that renovation cost, which I think, that brings us under the $2 million. So it gives me a good vote of confidence that we're going to be okay there. But with that said, we do have some other line items that we could potentially use if need be, if we get to that point. So the other costs, really nothing has changed. I will highlight moving services. We have this on here. That's essentially for the moving services that is going to move the furniture from the existing building to the temporary space and leave some allowance for if there's any secondary move, if we're moving any furniture back to the new building, which I don't think will be the case, or if we're required to, vacate the building at the end of the 2-year term. So feel comfortable with that allowance for the moving services. At the end, jumping ahead a little bit, but when we're going to talk about the schedule, we're going to have various estimates at the various design phases, and we'll update the budget accordingly depending on what the figures are telling us at those construction estimates, more so directed to the actual construction cost itself. Scrolling down the budget, we have some other miscellaneous project costs for, again, we have the land survey, utility back charges. That's typically when we get into new construction, if any of the utility companies charge us for any of their services to bring the power from the street or to install a transformer, anything of that nature. Typically, there's some nominal costs, some back charges that will be borne by the project. We also are carrying a budget and allowance for construction inspections and testing, which is a requirement for controlled public construction, as well as commissioning, which we would highly recommend doing MEP commissioning and potentially some envelope commissioning on the building. We also are carrying a design project contingency in this miscellaneous project cost allowance, which again is just another safeguard if there's anything that comes up, if we need additional services from KBA or additional consultants that we need to bring in. As we scroll through the budget, next item is more of the owner furniture, fixtures, and equipment allowances for your AV equipment, your actual furniture and furnishings for the building. We have some firing range, HVAC equipment, network, data, telephone, and communication equipment allowances. We also have an allowance for security and access controls. Some of these items, Kevin, I think we'll discuss as we progress through the design. Some of them may become owned by the general contract. It's, again, just a balance of what we want to procure and try to save on markup, or what, might be more of a headache of us to try to procure and manage ourselves versus having it be part of the design documents and owned by the general contract. So that FF&E allowance, I do suspect those numbers to change as we progress here through the design and figure out which allowances we want to allocate towards direct construction. And then as we scroll through, we're carrying a 5% construction contingency for the direct construction costs. We have the balance of the budget as an owner's project contingency, and then we wanted to highlight, based on the original OPC from KBA, the variance from the OPM balance. I think the original OPC had 1.7 million, and based on our current commitment, we were able to kind of give back about a 471,000 in contingency back to the project. So this is very much preliminary budget screenshot that, again, like I said, will be updated on a regular basis. As we progress, another item that we'll provide when we get there is a PCO, which is more a potential change order, which is more construction related, but also a contingency log, so we can show, when we do construction or any contingency draws, what it's for and what the remaining balance, will be. So yeah, again, just wanted to give, to JD's point, just wanted to give a screenshot of what we're going to be presenting on a monthly or regular basis and how we're tracking the budget for this project.
Paul, can I make a point too? You may remember when we started talking about this and why there were contingency lines, and it was because where we were in the design, we didn't have any design yet. So that's why there were those contingency lines. So it is, don't be shocked when you see money moving from those contingency lines into construction costs and out of the design contingency. That's what it's supposed to do. As we refine the design and get further and further along to a set of bid plans, we'll continue to do that. So you will see that often at the meetings, but that's how it's supposed to work. It isn't that we're blowing through all the contingency. And I'll probably say this every meeting, and I will say that 471,000 is a good start.
Yeah.
start.
Yeah. And as Kevin's aware, construction contingency, we're carrying 5%. As good as the plan sets are going to be, there's always going to be changes that we need to deal with, especially when we're demoing an existing building, dealing with a existing site. And we might, discover some things when we do the testing of, soils or the structure itself. So it's good to carry that 5% of the direct construction to get us through all those potential change orders that might exist.
And as we get through certain milestones, like you just said about the soils, once we get out of the ground at the existing site, we'll have good confidence that we were carrying some money for just in case any soil situation over there, and we're now out of the ground and we're good, then there's a sigh of relief, and it frees up a little bit of money for that too. So, next one.
Schedule?
Yep. So schedule, pull it up. So apologize, the printout I provided is, you might need a magnifying glass, but I have it, I'll blow it up on the screen here as best as I can. So we wanted to walk you folks through the projected schedule from now to completion. So we're currently in the schematic design phase. KBA is making the final tweaks to all the dimensions on, and I should highlight that the green highlighted fields are related to the new construction project. The peach highlights are more of the administrative piece of the project, and the blue is the temporary space on its own separate parallel track. So we had 3 months scheduled for schematic design. We're getting close to the end of that, where we're ready to move into design development. KBA will be providing an updated opinion of probable cost for the construction based on the current SD estimate set. So excited to see that. We're anticipating that by the middle of this month. That leads us right into design development, where we start getting into more of the detailed coordination on the drawings between the various trades, the MEPs, door swings, everything in between, trying to get a really inventoried design so that, when we get those designs developed, 1 and 2 part, we can get in front of the DCM board for the preliminary review of said plans. And we're targeting to do that, at the beginning of the year. But we want to make sure that we have the plans in a good spot, both from the site and from the floor plans, that we feel comfortable with the layout and everything in between, that we're ready to present to the various departments. So as we work through DD, that's when we'll perform our first official detailed construction estimate. It's typically referred to as a 60% set. Both KBA's third-party estimator and CHA's estimator will perform individual estimates. They will meet to reconcile those estimates, see where they were high and low on various numbers, and agree to find what the correct number should be for that estimate. And once we perform that reconciliation, we'll provide an update to the committee to let you know where the numbers are falling in and whether or not we need to highlight any potential escalation issues, or if we need to, incorporate any value engineering into the set. So that gives us a good calibration point before moving into construction documents of, if we need to make any major changes or minor changes, whatever there may be. It gives us a really good understanding of where the costs are coming in. And those estimates do project out based on the anticipated timeline of construction. So it's not costs of today. It's looking at your start date and your midpoint of construction. So that's factoring in, anticipated escalation. So at the end of DD, we provide a DD set for everyone's review and to have that on file. On a parallel track, we're going to be looking to submit our demo permit at the beginning of next month. And essentially what that does is that triggers the 6-month historical commission demo delay timeframe for them to provide any of their review or comments. And as we put that in, we're going to be working on the design drawings in parallel. We're going to be targeting our DCM meeting for the new construction building, as mentioned, in early January. I just put the 7th here as a placeholder. Liz, we can work with you on what date is available, early January. But we'll do a similar meeting to what we're going to be doing next Tuesday with the temp space, where we'll look at the floor plans, the site plan, get comments from all the various departments. From there, you can see I'm showing the various committees and boards that we think we're going to have to review on separate tracks. Concom, zoning, planning, and any other town departments. In that time period, we're going to allow 3 months for review, revision, and re-review of the plans to make sure that we're all on board to keep on track with the project. While the design and permitting aspects are happening, we'll be performing pre-qualifications of all filed subcontractors and general contractors. We'll be forming the pre-qualification committee, which I believe will essentially be the working group that has been meeting on a regular basis in our weekly meetings, but we'll have a further discussion maybe at the next building committee meeting of who should be part of that pre-qualification committee. Again, KBA and CHA will be working on the RFQ, getting that advertisement out, and pre-qualifying all of our trades and general contractors. We put together an evaluation matrix based on that RFQ, and we perform our thorough reviews of those RFQs, score those various contractors, call their references, and the goal is not to necessarily disqualify anyone, but you just want to highlight if there are any major issues with any of the contractors that submitted that we don't want them to be participating in this. We want competitive pricing and we want to have good contractors, but it's our job to evaluate those and make sure that we're only qualifying contractors that are are responsible and able to bid on this project. That would happen prior to our bid set going out on the street. So after just jumping back to design development, we have 3 months for that. That goes towards the end of February. That's when we go into the construction drawings phase, which is going to be a 4-month phase. That's where the drawings really get detailed and fine-tuned, incorporate the specifications, and make a plan set that is biddable by contractors. Try to avoid any potential RFIs or questions or bidding issues that might come up later as change orders. That's where we really try to nail down all the specific coordination and do a detailed, thorough review of all the plan sets and all the coordination sets. Towards the end of CD, we would perform our next and essentially final cost estimate, which we'd call the 90% construction document estimate. Same process as DD. We give our estimating teams on both tracks, KBA and CHA, a couple of weeks to do their estimate. We meet, do the estimate reconciliation, and again, highlight any potential escalation issues that need to be addressed, and address those in the CD documents before going out to bid. As shown here, we are planning on getting these bid documents published by the end of June, which would trigger a 4-week filed sub-bid period. On a parallel track, the general contractors would have essentially 6 full weeks, so they would have 2 weeks after the filed sub-bid opening to submit their bids. By mid-August, we would be opening those bids, and hopefully, not hopefully, once we get good, solid qualified bids, we would be looking to approve and provide notice of award, getting that endorsed by the select board, and then providing the contractor with a notice to proceed to kick off into construction. We're anticipating a 20-month construction period, namely because there is the demolition portion. There's a couple of months of demolition and an abatement and demolition that needs to happen before we can start mobilizing the site work contractor. So, give or take 2-3 months for demolition, and then, about 17 months for construction and closeout. And as mentioned, we have the temporary space here tracked on our parallel track. We have our DCM board meeting with Liz and the other departments next Tuesday to review the plans that Kevin just presented this morning. We have a couple weeks. I'm not sure what happened to this date. That got broken there. That addressed DCM comments. That is going to be the 3 weeks after this meeting, not August 25th, 25. I'm not sure how that happened. We will be advertising the bid package at the end of this month, and opening the filed sub-bid period early December. General contractors, again, same thing. They'd be available for an additional, I think we'd put in an additional 3 weeks this time just because of the holidays. We just want to make sure that we have enough time for generals to submit a good bid and they're not just throwing numbers at the wall. We want to give them enough time to give us solid numbers. we should be opening those bids at the beginning of January and moving forward to award and giving notice to proceed by mid-January, kicking off that 6-month building renovation timeline. As Mike, I think you mentioned earlier, for the move, we'd be looking to move the department towards the end of June through July so that the site is vacated for August for the new general contractor to do the new demolition.
Thanks, Dave.
Well, can I just add that unlike a school, we talked about this before, unlike a school, we're not under a deadline where we have to be done by August or the summer slammer thing starts to happen. If these move a week forward, a week back, a couple weeks forward, a couple weeks back, it's not the end of the world like it is on such a time constraint first.
And I'll add, we meet on a weekly basis right now, both with the town administrator and with KBA. And Kevin and I myself will be tracking this schedule and seeing if we're falling behind in any rate and seeing what we can do to make sure we keep on track with these milestones. So it's our job to drive that bus, and we plan to do so.
Thanks, Dave. So the next item on the agenda is something I just want folks to be thinking about. How are we going to provide the neighborhood adjacent to the police station with updates, and what's the best format for that, and how often? And I know I'm in touch with at least one of the neighbors on a regular basis, more or less to say, hey, just let you know, nothing's going on right now. We're working on the Vine Brook site. But, you know, as we progress in this project, we want to just make sure that we keep the neighbors informed, you know, on the Briarwood. And Roger, I don't know if you have any any suggestions on what's the best way to communicate with your neighbors, and, you know, what would be good points to touch base with them.
Paul, could you get a list of emails, addresses, and just for the group that you're talking about, and send out a file every time you want to get a message out to everybody?
Yeah, I think that'll be a part of it, but I think there'll also be, we'll want to probably meet with folks in person a little bit too, and just sort of just be a little bit more interactive that way.
Sure.
I think the normal mechanisms do pretty well. If there was an email that some people could subscribe to that were interested, that got updated maybe weekly or every other week, there's progress that report would be good. It doesn't hurt to walk down the street every once in a while, but I know it's hard to catch people at home, and sometimes they call the police when you knock on their doors. So, yeah, I mean, the thing that I'm still interested in is settling down the site plan impact on the neighborhood. It looks like that's going to be in, you know, December, January time, the way things are going.
So we'll try to put something together, at least to give an update on the timelines and things like that, when they should start expecting things to happen, and then we can sort of work from there.
I'll also run into one or two people who are interested in preserving the history, and so I guess this is where the Historic Commission come in, and maybe some of the individuals will do that. If there's any memorabilia that can come out of the building, there's a parallel process that people want to capture the history of the building in some way that's memorable. And I don't have, the ideas are not mine, so.
Yeah, I attend Historical Commission meetings frequently, so I'm in tune with that group, and I think one of our last meetings, I may have nominated Mike Hardy and Kathy Byer to sort of work with them, and I know that Kevin's come up with some ideas, so I know there's a lot of different ways to take wood from the old building and use it for entryway cabinets, and so there's a lot of different ways, I think, that are possibilities, so we'll be talking to the historical on an ongoing basis. But thank you. Great. Mike?
Maybe a mailer to all the residents and abutting streets, asking them for their email, asking them what they'd like to be updated on, asking them if they even want updates, because I've even heard from some that say, no, we're good, we trust you on this, and others would say, yeah, we'd like to know, what updates would be good. So maybe that way, like surveying them and get a feel for what they want to know, what they don't, or how they want to be updated, and collecting the email at the same time, having them just email that in or something.
When would the normal butter applications go out in terms of this overall process? what's that synchronized to in terms of the planning and permits?
So when the site comes to site plan review with the planning board, that is when a notice will go out to anybody within 300 feet of the property. So that's the formal one. The other thing I'm wondering, is there a website as part of the contract? Is there a website that's associated with this building project? Like the schools, they have, that's a good mechanism in making sure the neighbors, providing updates on there consistently, and then also making sure the neighbors have access and know where that link is and sending it out to them.
That exists.
Yeah, so I don't know if we want to, that may be a helpful mechanism to get the word out.
We do have a website, it's linked right through bpd.org, where you can get onto the new building project. So we're happy to provide updates on that website.
Yeah, the key to us is to continuously update it, I think.
Something that CHA does on some of our projects, and it all depends on, like you said, the neighbors that are interested, is we can provide a weekly email memo to abutters that are interested if they want to sign up for the list, provide a few pictures of the activity that happened that site and a quick summary or write-up of what's going on, what happened that week and what's coming up, just to keep everyone informed. So that's something that we can accommodate if need be.
Excellent. Great ideas, thank you very much. All right, so we're getting close, so we're just about to the 1 hour mark, but wanted to allow for some time for some questions and comments. And Alex, sorry, I haven't been paying attention to the computer screen, so if you're out there and you have any questions, just raise your hand there. Otherwise, anybody have any questions, comments?
In addition to visiting Vinebrook, just to give a feel for the place and put these plans into perspective and seeing that building, do you think it would be beneficial for this group to visit Lexington PD, which is the newest station that's close by? Just to get an idea of, so when you're talking about security system, you now have the visual to equate that to.
Yeah. What we talked about with the chief during the design phase is we typically like to take the committee and any members of the committee that are interested on a tour of a couple of other projects that we've done so that you can actually kick the tires, if you will. How does the mechanical system work? How does your access control? How did these spaces lay out? And get kind of a spatial idea of where things are and how they are. I mean, even silly little things like how big is the cell? We have good relationships with most of all of our clients that we can arrange for a tour of a group, weekend, during the day, whichever works best for the committee, to get you through some projects as we're talking about the development of the administrative staff and how big the main training room is. We can get you into projects that are approximately the same size with the same amount of officers and show you kind of what some of the possibilities are. But that's a very important part. And the other part that we do, we have the ability now to bring to you folks three-dimensional software that we can actually bring it to the meeting here and walk you through the building as it's being developed.
I think it's a great idea. Seeing it on paper is one thing, seeing
Yes.
it in person is another.
Yeah. Yeah, the chief and I have already kind of talked about 2 or 3 projects that he'd like to go take a look at. It's still a little early for that right now, but we've got that definitely on our to-do list.
Any final questions, comments, Mike?
This one's for the chief. Chief, I was looking at the plan for the temporary station. I didn't see any accommodations for Officer Zuko. Are we thinking about an office for him or his training?
He already knows he can go wherever he wants, so.
Anybody else? Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Thank you very much, everybody, for your time.